Hey y'all, so this episode was a little bit on the draining side for me. Like, I am exhausted. I don't know if it's because it's been raining all weekend in New York and that's the vibe, but I was just kind of watching this. Like, we're here to review the latest episode of The Real Housewives of New York, season 14. Y'all know I don't know what episode it is, child. We start and we are on the aftermath of the Uba and Aaron beef that started last week when Aaron was saying don't say my name, and because Uba was doing like a roll call because they were gonna go out, and then Uba got in her face and took her sunglasses off. Like, we literally talked about this ad nauseum this whole episode. I guess I can understand that this is all within that same day, so fine, but the exhaustion of it all. So we did get a lot of the dynamic things in this episode, I will say that. It was interesting to me watching, like, I think the key thing, I almost said highlight, but highlight sounds very like positive. The key thing I would say is like seeing Erin's reaction to this whole thing was very quite interesting. So she starts off the episode getting upset, and she calls this the worst conflict that she's ever had in her life, the conflict with Uba. So I find that interesting because the gravity of it didn't give me worst thing ever. But again, my name is not Aaron. This is something I feel like I could have known was going to happen. Like, Bryn says that Uba is 100% right, basically. And okay, like, I guess my question then is just like, is she going to acknowledge that to Aaron? But like, I just find it interesting her saying that she's 100% right. I don't know that she was doing that to be messy, because she then also does say, like, even though Uba's right, she's approaching it the wrong way. So I get that, but I think that it's also funny that Bryn can, because that's a very good point, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. The only thing that I find interesting is that she has this level of discernment as it applies to how Uba acts, but she doesn't really apply it to how Bryn acts. That's all. Even given that, Uba's still able, like, at the end of the day, Uba is just like clocking it the whole episode. Like, she's not trying to hear it. I will like definitely say up front, even though we haven't fully gotten into it, like, Uba's definitely going ham. Like, she's very, very, very upset. And I said last episode that I don't think that I would necessarily be upset, but I'm also just kind of like drained of hearing about it. So it's just kind of like, as it went on, I was just like, girl, whatever. But Uba was really clocking it, and she really put her foot down when she's like, well, Bryn, you're kind of, I guess she felt like Bryn was trying to defend Aaron a little bit, which I think in a way she, I don't know. I wouldn't say that she was, but she was trying to like do the benefit of the doubt thing as it applied to Aaron. And it was just like, girl, like, you and Aaron have had several conflicts at this point, and then you always come back and act like you're best friends. Like, girl, it's not even real. And it seems like Bryn has an aha moment at that point, and she picks up the bone that Uba has dropped. So that's a cute dynamic moment for us. I definitely didn't think it was necessary for Uba to like keep Aaron's sunglasses and do the whole 45-minute alarm thing. But also, just as much as I didn't think it was necessary, I also didn't really too much care about hearing it. Like I said, the ladies thought it was super. What I think this episode was like seeing Uba overreact, but at the end of the day, as a viewer, we're not really invested in the overreaction of it all and like trying to hold Uba accountable, because the rest of these ladies do that all the time. So I'm finding it hard to even get in a position to like reprimand Uba for her actions, even as petty as they are, and then like approve what the ladies are saying and affirm it by saying like, oh, it's so childish and blah blah blah, because they do stuff like this every episode, but now Uba's doing it, so it's such a big thing. Like, it's just so contradictory to how they act every other episode. So it was just hard for me to, I guess, be on the right side of history and be politically correct, because I'm not here to condemn anything that Uba did. Honestly, like, I definitely kind of acknowledge that it was childish, but I'm not upset about it. You know, I did giggle a little bit when they're at the bar, and this was a weird, like, I don't even know how to identify what event they did, because they kind of just, like, went to a bar, sat at the pool, and went to eat in this episode, so it was all kind of mushed together, but, you know, whatever. And, I giggled, like, when Uba's alarm went off at the bar, and she handed her back her sunglasses, and that opened up the door for more conversation, I guess. So, ERIN comes out the gate and she's just like, next time instead of getting mad, like, why not talk to me as a friend? But Uba's still lit up. It's like, girl, that alarm went off, but my attitude is not off. And it's like, you're not off the hook, like, at the end of the day. And like I said, I think Uba's argument is not one that I would have picked, but I don't think that the phone thing was really the principle of it. I think she was just kind of fed up with ERIN's BS at the end of the day. So Uba immediately clocks that, and she's just like, I mean, girl, you're talking about being a friend, but it's like, you're not a friend. Like, you're always on BS. Like, at the end of the day, I think that's the principle. Like, I do believe that Uba and ERIN have some type of friendship, so I think Uba recognizes better than a lot of them that ERIN be full of BS. And her like using this fragility thing in this episode, like I think Uba clocked it ahead of time, and Uba's like, girl, I'm upset, I'm not gonna allow you to be upset now. Like, I don't care, I don't want to hear it. You're not is like you're not the one to give keynotes about how to communicate as a friend. And then she brings up the whole like fakeness of like the ERIN and the Bryn relationship, and now ERIN's catching the heat, and this is one of 13 instances in this episode where she's going to remove herself. And I don't fault ERIN for removing herself, because I think as an adult, like when you're in these conflicts and you don't necessarily want to escalate them or be involved in them, then yes, you should remove yourself. However, ERIN's removing herself because ERIN doesn't have anything to stand on at the end of the day, and nobody's jumping in as an ally for ERIN to fight against the other lady like they typically did. Like when ERIN picks at Jessel every episode, how Sai and Bryn will jump in, like she has that to stand on when she's having that conflict. She doesn't have anybody to fight with her now and be on her side, so she's standing by herself. She can't defend herself, so she wants to run away. That's what this is, and that's what continued to happen throughout the episode. Honestly, keyword of the episode is contradictory, because we get Sai, and like this was what stood out the most to me. Like, if I was, let's just say hypothetically, I'm putting my head down for every other moment in the episode because I didn't give a damn, I was really definitely perking my ears up to when Sai is trying to say like, oh, well, you can't lash out and you shouldn't react like this and you shouldn't do this. Like, I just thought it was insane that Sai was trying to tell Uba that she can't lash out and get in ERIN's face, but she was just screaming unprovoked at Jessel last episode on the boat because Jessel didn't tell her a story of her background to her liking. Like, she was hollering. So what Sai? Like, where is this degree in rational communication coming from? Another interesting dynamic, like I said, if we didn't get anything from this episode, we got interesting dynamics. And Jenna is making it very clear that she's on the side of ERIN, which is interesting because ERIN had her in drama on day one of the trip, which I don't understand to have been that long prior to this occurrence. So I guess maybe Jenna's not clocking tea as best as I thought she did, but whatever. So she's on the side of ERIN, and she feels like Uba's really dragging it, which again, I do feel like Uba is dragging it, but I think it's outweighed by all the other BS that ERIN has done and has also affected Jenna. So I don't know why Jenna is choosing this, but I mean, it's fine. Like, whatever, she can do whatever she wants to do. They ultimately end up looking stupid because ERIN has left the group. Jenna ran after her, and she's the only one to run after her. So, of course, ERIN's feeling some type of way because the other ladies didn't come check on her. Instead, they're over listening to Uba rant and rave all episode, and then they go and they play a little bit of limbo on the beach, which looked really fun. And Jenna and ERIN are literally watching them play. And Jenna's really into it. She's literally providing commentary. Like, she's a sports analyst for their limbo game. And so ERIN's looking pissed, and they're like, well, let's go play something else. And they go play Connect 4. So I was like, come on now, be for real. Y'all, like, now they're at lunch. So they transition from a food/drink place, more so for drinks, to another food/drink place. But here they're eating. And Sai is again trying to pacify the situation because Sai is very good at pacifying things that don't directly involve her. Like, Sai likes to insert herself into things that don't involve her at all, but then be passive against the people that are involved. And it's like, but this has nothing to do with you. So who, like, But, Sai's like, I guess she's a host, so I'll give it to her this episode. She's a host, so fine. She wants to find some common ground. She just keeps saying, like, I want us to get past it and have a good time. I guess this is their last day on the trip. But the ladies now, like, everybody's I think everybody's saying what they had already been thinking. Like, it's not like Uba provoke them to do it. Like, Uba's literally just kind of going off the handle the whole episode, and the ladies are falling in like, well, yeah, like, you know, since it is a topic of discussion, like, ERIN does kind of start a lot of BS. And they specifically bring up, you know, the thing that just happened with Jenna, that ERIN started, where she told everybody that Jenna wanted to fly private, and then Jess was like, yeah, and she even started with me and made up this whole thing like, oh, well, my uncle's rich and took care of me. Like, none of that ever happened. Like, ERIN just brings up a lot of BS, and she starts stuff because she mischaracterizes stories. Like, at the end of the day, like, she is the issue. It is what it is. And I just found it so interesting that Sai, like, this is the one conversation that Sai would not assert herself into to give an adverse opinion about ERIN. Like, she had nothing negative to say about ERIN, but she always jumps in and has something negative to say about everyone else. Like, I just thought that that was very fascinating. Because it's not like Sai didn't also have an issue with ERIN, right? Like, when she left her dinner, her party early to go to Nobu. So, I mean, it's interesting to me. Like, I want to see where that comes from. While we're at lunch, though, ERIN, you know, rejoins the group because we're at a different venue during the same damn thing that we've been doing all the episode. And that means that we're sitting down for a meal slash drink, and now cue Uba to start going in again. And I'm not really sure what Uba was about to say. It seems like she kind of just randomly re-brought it up, and ERIN was immediately already done. Like, she just could not take it, because at the end of the day, she didn't want to be addressed, and she didn't have anybody acting as an ally. Like, she didn't have another mouthpiece to add on to her, so she just wasn't able to take it. Like, that's the impression that I get of ERIN. Like, she's only good in conflicts when she has somebody to back it up, and she didn't have that, so now she wanted to run away again. In a way that I missed some context, like, now that ERIN is gone, Uba is airing some grievances. Since we didn't get the context, and I don't know how the angry black woman thing came up, I would assume that Uba may have felt some type of way because the group was kind of trying to pacify her. They weren't necessarily disagreeing with her on the points that she was making about ERIN. Actually, they were agreeing, but they were also kind of trying to tell her to calm down and change her approach. So I would assume, without context, that this probably is what led to the conversation about the angry black woman thing. Like I said before, I can definitely agree with the argument, like, okay, Uba, you're upset, but you're dragging it a little bit. But I also agree with Uba. She didn't say this, right? But I also would agree with Uba feeling like she doesn't want people telling her to calm down or controlling the way that she's going about it, or the you know, the manner that she's addressing it, because, you know, I get her argument that black women are perceived as angry black women, and they, you know, because they're passionate, like it's an issue and they have an issue, and people always immediately say they're dragging it, and they criticize the way that they address things. So I get that. So I didn't have a problem with her bringing that up. I did like also, because obviously there are two other black women at the table, or, you know, women that have black in them, and Sai and Bryn doesn't necessarily say yay or nay to it. It's, for me, it felt like she felt hesitant to talk about it, which I can understand. It can be very uncomfortable to talk about those things and take a stance on them, especially when you're on national television. However, Sai does say in her confessional that she, you know, the argument is correct. Like, the angry black woman thing is correct, but she still feels like, you know, that didn't give Uba a pass to, like, get into, you know, ERIN's face, and she doesn't feel like the angry black woman thing is applicable here. Again, like, you know, it's just two sides of the argument that I do agree with. Like, I just don't know that we're going to get anywhere on it. Like, everybody has a point at the end of the day. I think that if I'm assuming correctly why Uba brought up the angry black woman thing, because the group is telling her to calm down and handle it differently, then I will have to agree with her for feeling that way. But I also do agree that Uba should not have gotten into ERIN's face. But I wouldn't, I guess, to Sai's point, I wouldn't combine the things, because I kind of agree as it goes. Like, I think that, honestly, the reason that it wasn't making any movement is because everybody just agreed. Like, everything that was stated, there was a way to agree to it at the end of the day. So there wasn't going to be any common ground. Like, everybody had made points, but those points just were not going to meet in the middle. Back at the house, ERIN's on the phone, I believe, with her father, and she's just super emotional again. I understand her being upset for sure. However, when she started to articulate why she was upset, specifically to her father, it just felt like this whole like fragility type of thing, because she's specifically saying like she's upset because Uba's being so mean and she doesn't know Uba to be that mean. And she's triggered because back in seventh grade, she was bullied. So this is what she's feeling in that moment. That I didn't love, because at the end of the day, ERIN, you're technically a bully every episode. Like the way that you basically target and pick at Jessel all the time, and you do it as a group. Like I said, like ERIN doesn't typically do these things alone. She always brings Brennan, Sai along. So you effectively bully Jessel all the time, especially on this trip. You've been bullying Jessel. You bully her all the time. So I think it's so funny for you to be off crying and upset and super emotional and feeling like someone was so mean to you. Like, you're not necessarily the nicest person in this group. Again, there's no past. Like, nobody's saying that Uba should be being mean to you, and nobody's agreeing with the method in which she's acting. I'm not even agreeing with it, but I'm also not feeling bad for you. You can definitely see though that there's a level of accountability, back at the lunch that they're at, because Uba does apologize to the group for being the cause of all the like ERIN related drama for the day. And so I think that she knows that the way that she's acting isn't great, but I just feel like she doesn't want to be told how to act and policed on how she's acting. That's how she feels. Uba strikes me as one of those people, like, I'm upset, so I'm going to act the way that I act when I'm upset, and I don't want that to be policed. But she does apologize to the group. Bryn reiterates, that she gives a number. She says you're 97% correct on everything you're saying, but when you approach it a certain type of way, it kind of negates your argument. And for the 500th time, I agree with that. Like, at the end of the day, yes, when you're upset, you have a right to be upset, but there's always a way to handle things, so I get it. But like I said, I get Uba's argument that she doesn't want to be policed. I know I keep repeating myself, but I feel like this episode was hella repetitive. They're on the way back home, and even though Bren is kind of like, trying to calm down, well, previously was trying to calm down Uba and didn't want her to be acting a certain type of way, she then seems to be putting a light up under Jessel, because I don't know what the context for this either, but I guess the topic of the day was just like, ERIN do be on some BS. Like, I think everybody was like, ERIN do be on some BS. And, Bryn is feeling some type of way. I also forgot to even mention, Bryn found out earlier from Uba, because it's mad day for Uba, so Uba's letting it out, like, why ERIN's so full of BS. And, Uba's like, ERIN even told me, Bryn, that, you're a social climber. Like, when that whole dinner thing happened at the beginning of the season, like, she called you a social climber. So, like, it's fake. Like, Uba's whole point is that ERIN talks mess about everybody at the end of the day. On Mad Day, that came out. So it is what it is. So Bryn is feeling some type of way. I think everybody's clocking the tea, and now they're saying things about ERIN that they wouldn't previously have said. I think Jessel has always been saying it, but now everybody's like, oh, we do feel some type of way about ERIN, so I guess we can air it out. Not Sai, though. Bryn airs out to Jessel. She's like, yeah, ERIN calls you dumb all the time. Like, and she says that, you lied about your story about coming from nothing. She says you have a trust fund. Like, yeah, she talks about you all the time, essentially. And Jessel is fired up. Like, if Jessel didn't know, I guess I didn't realize, like, obviously she gets the treatment from ERIN. I think Jessel clocks what ERIN does, like how she targets her and picks at her, but she didn't know specifically what ERIN was saying, like popping her stuff behind her back to the other ladies. And so now she's upset, and she's like, I keep a list, and I thought that the list was going to be like of tea on ERIN, like maybe she's heard things about ERIN, but she's keeping a list of like encounters she's had with ERIN and like the way that ERIN has picked at her. And they say it's a long list, and I believe that. I mean, we've only been watching the episode for so long, and I mean the season for so long, and we've seen multiple instances, so I believe that the list should be long as well. I've got lists myself. Obviously this is going to be a thing. I mean, it's not as major. Like I said, it's not a thing where it's like Jessel has a list of tea on ERIN. That's what I assumed it was going to be. So that would have been a bigger scenario. But with it just being a list of like occurrences and like the way that Jessel felt about them, that's not a big deal. So I kind of disregarded it and didn't think that it was going to go back to the group, or maybe I forgot about it, but it does come back up later in an interesting way. But, we'll see how that carries out. They're back at the house. Immediately, basically, Uba walks in the house. ERIN approaches her, and she's like, can we talk? So they're having a conversation. I'm just thinking this is kind of what they usually do, where they kind of come to terms and get over it. But that conversation goes bad again because they're still arguing their points. And like I said, everybody has a point, but at the end of the day, he even here specifically, like, Erin, she did get to a point in that conversation where she's just trying to tell Uba how mean she was and how she was acting. And I just feel like Uba was like, girl, like, I'm not trying to hear that at the end of the day. Like, if we're gonna have a conversation, then we can both take accountabilities for things, but you're not gonna sit here and tell me everything that I did was wrong, because Erin, you do the same stuff all the time. That's the impression that I got. So I think that's why I went so left, because Uba just was not going to be told about herself. At the end of the day, like, girl, you talk about Erin, I'll talk about Uba, and then we can exchange notes, and let's both be accountable, because at the end of the day, there's no angel in this situation. But it definitely doesn't end here. Erin leaves again. I mean, because there was just this weird point where, like, Uba's trying to go get her phone, and it's not clear what point she's trying to make. She can't find her phone, and Erin's just like, well, I'm not going to sit here all day. Like, let's just talk this out. And, you know, Uba's still heated. She's been heating all day. And she's like, girl, well, let's just end it. It is what it is. So they end it, and everybody's getting in the hot tub. But as Erin's getting in the hot tub, they're still having a conversation about Erin being a common denominator. Like, that's just an ongoing thing. But it's like nobody wants to say it to Erin's face besides Jessel and Uba. So, you know, Bryn's talking about it, and she's mentioning this whole anniversary party thing where she was flirting with Erin's husband, and she was completely wrong, but she's bringing it back up. And I think Bryn's like a kick the girl while she's down person, and like a pick me type of person. So, like, when a conversation is being had, if you can squeeze in a little point there and try to, like, validate your own arguments, that's what Bryn will do. Like, she's like, oh, we're talking about Erin. Let me bring up again why I think Erin was wrong as it pertains to this anniversary party, even though they already covered that. Like, Bryn wants to talk about Bryn again, and something that's important to Bryn. Not surprising. But that conversation gets cut off because Erin comes to the hot tub and she's like, girl, because essentially Bryn's like dragging it out and mischaracterizing it as only Bryn would. And she's like, you know, Erin called me an S word, and one that rhymes with mutt. And Erin's like, I didn't call you that. Like, at the end of the day, she's like, we talked about that. We got through that. Like, you're bringing that up because Uba's got you fired up. So that gets Uba fired up again. They're arguing. They're calling each other the B word. And Bryn's like, girl, you don't want to start with me. So I'm just like, where did this smoke come from Bryn? Like, girl, like, she's just so flip-floppy. And of course, Erin starts crying again. And it's just like, at this point, Uba does try to, like, comfort her a little bit. And Bryn's kind of just like, okay, like, I get it. She's obviously getting emotional. Like, I don't want it to keep being too much. But that just makes me consider, like, okay, so, like, if you guys, all these other times that you guys do it to, like, Jenna and do it to, like, Jessel, like, if they just started breaking down crying each time, like, would y'all just leave them alone? Like, would that be the fix? Because I'm just confused here. And then even worse, like, Sai is sitting here talking about, well, this feels like an ambush. And I'm like, this? Like, of all times feels like an ambush? Like, what happened to when y'all were cursing Jessel out on the boat? What happened when y'all were cussing Jessel out the episode before that, and the episode before that, and the episode before that? Like, why is this all of a sudden an ambush? Like, Sai, what are you talking about? But then she comes to her confessional, the only place she typically makes sense. And she's like, well, Erin, you know, she is a common denominator, and she does start a lot of stuff. So it's like, okay, but you're not going to say that to Erin? Like, I'm just not understanding. Like, what is your viewpoint on this? Like, what are you saying exactly? Finally, though, Uba and Erin step out to the side. Erin's like, can I just talk to you? Like, Uba was just comforting her, so she's like, can I just talk to you? Because Erin can only do a one-on-one. She's not allowed to be confronted by multiple people. She can confront Jessel and Jenna with multiple people, but she can't be confronted by multiple people. Let's take account of the rules. So she pulls Uba to the side for a one-on-one, and they talk, and Uba's still, which I like, holding her ground and letting her know, like, girl, I get that you're upset. Nobody wants you to be upset. Don't want to give you too much. Like, yes, we understand that. But at the end of the day, you do the same stuff. Like, you do the same thing. Like, you start a lot of mess. And, you know, ultimately, Erin, she's hearing it from a friend. I'm assuming, like I said, they have some type of relationship, some type of history. And she takes accountability. I won't say take accountability, but she does say, like, yeah, okay, I start mess. So I guess. You know what I'm saying? I guess that was a resolve. I would call it a soft resolve because at the end of the day, all they're doing is agreeing to a point that Uba made a long time ago. It just took all of this fighting to do that. So, I mean, I don't know. That's what kind of like takes away from the crying that Aaron did all episode because it's just like you did all that crying and feeling attacked and feeling like bullied to agree with the point that Uba's been making all day. And you know, you felt like Uba was turning the girls against you, but they had their own individual issues against you because you're the common denominator. Like I just don't know what revelation Erin may have come to. I guess she just wants to be held accountable on a one-on-one basis. Maybe that's what we've learned today on Sesame Street. Like I don't know. Well, one thing I guess I can say that Erin learned is, you know, she goes to Jenna. She still has to have somebody to, you know, unload with naturally. And she still feels like she was ganged up on in the hot tub. You know, Jenna wasn't in the hot tub. So she tells Jenna, like, I was ganged up on. But she says, you know, I guess that's how you felt at the table, like when we first got on the trip. And, you know, they ganged up on Jenna about the whole flight thing. I didn't hear an apology in there, but I heard an acknowledgement that it has happened to somebody else. So I guess we made ground with Erin. Like, I don't know. But yeah. They didn't end up sitting down before whatever the heck they were doing next. Like I said, I don't know what the heck they're doing this day. It's all over the place for me. And basically, it's Sai and Erin and Jenna. And Jenna, you know, like I said, she wasn't in the hot tub, so she's trying to keep getting the tea on what happened in the hot tub. So she's asking, like, well, did you hear about Jessel's list? Like, was that discussed? And Erin's like, that wasn't discussed at all. So Sai begins to mischaracterize because she loves to mischaracterize as well. And she's like, yeah, you know, Jessel has this list of things that have happened against, you know, with everybody and how she felt about them. And she keeps them so she can use them later when she needs them. I don't remember Jessel characterizing it as that. I was not there. So if she did say those things, then fine. I'm saying facetiously because I'm sure she didn't say it like that. But, you know, Sai says it like that, puts a little extra seasoning on it, of course. But it doesn't seem like it rattles Erin too much. I can only imagine, though, that it may come out later from either Erin or Sai because they're really good at that. And especially because it involves Jessel, I'm sure that they'll use it if and when they need to. I did also note that, like, Bryn, because she kind of made a joke, she kind of, I don't know if it was her all episode or, like, her and somebody else, but she kept making this joke all episode about, like, easily forgetting Jessel. I don't know that I understand the narrative. If I get the impression that the bulk of the ladies, meaning Erin, Sai, and Bryn, want to kind of isolate Jessel in a way and paint some type of narrative that Jessel is this problem and she doesn't fit in and she's the one that they can pick at. But I don't know that the viewers are getting that, thank God. So I think it makes them look even worse because they mention Jessel so often when Jessel doesn't even like. In this episode, you could really even just say like there was nothing to even to discuss as it pertains to Jessel. Like it was hilarious seeing her pay the girls no mind and sit in the hot tub and drink her drink and play on her phone while Uber and Erin were arguing. Like she didn't want to be bothered. That was hilarious. Like that's the vibe I get. But like I don't understand why there's always this like need to like say something negative as it pertains to her. Like, oh, she's so easily forgettable. Like, so I don't know. I'm very glad that this trip is over. Like, this third day was just exhausting, but we did at least get a lot of like dynamic stuff. We did finally get to hear the ladies air some grievances about Erin, even if they won't say it to their face. And unfortunately, I am tending to agree with the masses that Sai is pretty unlikable. So I don't know. It's just not getting any better as it pertains to that. But I'm happy that they're leaving and they get to go back to New York and let's see what happens when they get back. And I'll see y'all next time.